Hey guys, my name is Rebecca from homeschoolon.com. I am a homeschool mom of 5 young children who was homeschooled myself, so I pretty much live and breathe homeschooling. I usually do YouTube curriculum reviews here on this channel, but today's going to be something a little bit different because my journey has really changed in this past year, both in my own personal homeschool as well as in my business realm of what I do, what I talk about. So I want to talk about a little bit of my journey this past year, where God has brought me, the testimony of what He's been doing in our homeschool, and share with you the story of Gather Round Homeschool. Part of my journey and testimony of being a homeschool mom and being a blogger is that I have always been searching for more. Always. That's my personality. I'm an incredibly driven person. I was very passionately committed to staying home with my children and raising them and homeschooling them from the very beginning. We've homeschooled since my youngest was in preschool, but I also was unwilling to just have that be my identity. I wanted to do something more, something that used my gifts and my strengths and continued to keep me sharp and ready and active and involved in the world around me. And so I have tried everything. Every MLM company that is out there, I feel like I probably have signed up for it at some point or time. I have created my own. I used to have a sewing business and sew baby clothes and nursing covers. Then I crocheted hats and different things. And then I put away my sewing machine and I have not touched it in about 4 years. But the point is, I was a driven person and I was always searching for a way that God would use my strengths and my giftings. So I volunteered, I was involved in ministry, I've always been involved in worship leading. And one day I got an email from a company that saw my personal blog. I've always loved writing. That was always my dream, to grow up and be a writer. And they saw one of my posts about homeschooling that I had shared just with, my 2 friends and a couple family members that might possibly have the time to read what I had written. And they said, "Hey, we love what you've done. Would you be interested in reviewing our curriculum if we send it to you for free?" I was like, wait, this happens? Like, yes, I would. Please do this. So I got signed up and I started reviewing curriculum, and then eventually I created my own blog for it. And I just kind of started watching what other people were doing and realized, hey, I could be doing this for all my curriculum. I could be getting free curriculum. And that was really the beginning of Homeschool On. I started out just totally having no idea what I was doing. I knew how to write, though even that, I look back on some of my previous blog posts and I'm like, did I know how to write? I basically had no idea what I was doing, but I was all in and I loved it and I was excited to use what I was passionate about, which was writing and communicating with other people, as well as getting free stuff. I was really passionate about getting free stuff. So along the way, I've seen Homeschool On grow, and there's been some major challenges that I have faced. There have been incredible dark valleys along this journey, and points where I thought I was going to lose everything, where I felt like I was going to have to walk away from everything that I had done and poured myself into, and God has just taken me on an incredible journey that I am so excited to share with you guys one day, and I cannot wait for that day. I get to share with you guys the business side of my testimony, which is huge. God has been so faithful and such a huge part of every aspect of not just my kids, my family, my husband, my ministry, my own personal life, but my business, which is incredibly exciting to me. So anyways, but we're going to move on from that. I've gone through some really difficult moments. And really this past year, again, I felt like I was in a season of what now? Because I have 5 kids. They're all in school. Last year, my youngest was in kindergarten. And so all of a sudden I went from, I'm now trying to homeschool 5 different kids in 5 different grade age ranges, and trying to balance all my reviews and everything else that I was doing online, keeping up with social media, keeping up with Instagram, keeping up with the reviews and blog posts and YouTube videos, and companies are sending me stuff, and now I have to try this stuff, and then I have to talk about this stuff, and just keeping up with everything and wondering, what do I actually want? Do I love doing reviews? Do I want to be the YouTube reviewer of homeschool curriculum? And I know I can do it, but am I passionate about this? Is this the direction I'm going? And then even asking away from the business side of it in my own personal life, these conversations that I had with God of how How do I do this? How can I continue to divide myself between my husband and my kids and my household and my ministry and my own personal life and walk and self-care and everything that I have going on? How do I balance all of this? I was failing miserably at homeschooling, you guys. Here I'm talking to you about homeschooling. I'm talking to you about curriculum and resources and all these amazing things, but we only did enough for the sake of that review before we were moving on to something else, and I felt like I was drowning. I felt like a failure. And I felt like we were unschooling in a forced way. Not that I'm against unschooling. I love the idea of child-directed learning. I'm passionate about it, but I was not even doing child-directed learning. I was doing turn on the TV so that I can work. And I was so dissatisfied and frustrated. And I had these conversations with God, and I remember saying, do I put them in school? I can't really put them in school. How can I do that? What do I do with this? Do I put some of them in school? How can I balance this? And the clear answer was no, you don't do that, because you have been called to homeschool your kids. The thought of putting my kids into school is enough to make me want to cry. The thought of losing the connection, the relationship with the siblings, with me and them, and seeing those amazing moments and raising them in the ways of God, I just felt, no, I can't do that. I am called. This is not just a decision. I am called to homeschool my kids. But aside from that, then I was like, okay, well then, am I still doing this? Because how can I do everything? I'm drowning. And so I was at this place, this precipice, this balancing beam of trying to figure out what direction I would go in my professional life, but also how I was going to make that work and what this looked like, because I cannot sacrifice my kids and my homeschooling, what I'm called to do, raising them. This has to come first. And so I just felt like these two worlds were not meeting. And so I really spent a lot of time praying and asking God and thinking and brainstorming about what I could do. And the best moments were when I would travel and go and speak, because I speak at homeschool conventions. I was in 3 different ones in the United States last year. And every time I would travel to go speak at these plane rides were like the most incredible times for me to just brainstorm and write and vision cast. And I started having this seed planted in my heart of, why are you settling? Why are you settling? This idea that you had when you first started school, and we laugh about it, and I know I've said this on my podcast, I know some of you have heard this before, but I just feel like this is so incredible, like this is groundbreaking stuff right here. Because I had this picture of my kids gathered around me like little hens, all listening while I read to them. And then I actually started homeschooling, and they're bouncing off the walls and jumping over here and coloring and fighting, and no one's listening, and I'm angry, like really angry, like unnaturally angry, because I actually feel hurt and offended that they are not listening when I'm pouring all of myself into something, and it just did not work for us. And I'm like, that picture, I let that die. I totally let that die. And in fact, I even talked about it here on my podcast, on my live videos, and I laughed about it, and I said that was naive. And I felt like God so challenged me on that and said, was it? Was it naive? You say and you talk about life and life abundantly in your homeschool, life and life abundantly in the way that you raise your kids, in your marriage, in your ministry, in your work. Are you living that right now? Are you living and walking in life abundantly? Because I'm telling you that what I see, it could be better. And I all of a sudden had this picture of, like, I had boxed it in to this is as good as it gets. And I felt like God was saying, dream bigger, dream bigger, dream bigger for your family, bigger for your marriage, bigger for your kids, bigger for your homeschool. I care about your homeschool, and this ain't it. This is not it. This is not what you have to settle for. So this seed was germinating in my heart, in my soul, this passion for, okay, now I see this, I have this discontent. I'm unhappy. I'm unsatisfied with everything I'm seeing, everything I'm trying, this feeling, this stress, this anxiety, sometimes the anger and impatience, which all stemmed around this wasn't working. And I saw the problem, and yet still no solution presented itself. And honestly, you guys, it was late at night. It was like a midnight thing. I was sitting there, I was praying, and I was just like, God, in the business, now I was on to business. God's already talked to me personally. Now I'm talking about in my business. And I'm like, what do you want? What do you want from me for this year? Just a few months prior, I had a speaker come up that had talked about giving his business to God, and he'd actually signed a contract and said, I don't just want to do this with you. I want to do this for you. I give it to you completely, and I'm going to work for you. I'm under you, God. You tell me what to do, and I will do it. And make every business decision, every money decision, he gave it to God. And I was like, I'm in. Talked to my husband, made sure he was on board, and then I signed over my business on a napkin, still have it, and I signed it over to him, and I said, on this date, I'm out. Like, Homeschool On is yours. So here it's been a couple of months. I have this royal discontent, but I'm not seeing breakthrough. I don't know where to go with this. I'm just unhappy, which is not a super fun place to be. But by the way, if you're in that season, that means breakthrough is about to come. So you are actually waiting for your breakthrough, and it's an exciting place to be, so don't get discouraged in that. Random word, back to what I'm talking about. So I'm up late at night, I'm journaling, I'm talking, I'm like, what do you want? Am I gonna be the next YouTube reviewer? Is this what I'm doing? Because then I should start, reaching out to different clients and different companies and making a plan. I was already planning out I was gonna do this series of reviews, comparisons, and I had this idea. He kept bringing back what he was speaking to me in my personal life and saying, what if you could teach all your kids together? And I'm like, well, yeah, God. Do that. That's what I tell everybody. I'm like, blend your kids as much as possible. I mean, teach them their language arts or teach them their math that they have to do separate. Blend them as much as possible. And I felt like he's like, yeah, but I mean more. What if you could teach them all together? And I had this idea of this unit study, unschooled, child-directed learning, independent, mixed with actual work that would help me feel like I accomplished something because I can't just do nothing, and feeling like all of these things. I had this crazy, wild dream, this vision, this picture of this program that was going to be something that we could all do together for all of our subjects at all of our levels. Unit studies have never worked for me. And the reason they have never worked for me is partly because my kids are so broad in their ages and abilities. Most of them are designed for like K-2 or this, or they'll say, do it with all your kids. Here's some adaptations, but the actual program is designed for this age range. Well, that doesn't work for me. And I cannot go in and try to adapt that for 5 different subjects, 5 different kids at 5 different ages, at 5 different levels. It's just not enough of me to go around. But this picture was, what if I could teach you together, but then you all work at your own individual levels? I mean, that's crazy, right? We're talking 7 books every month, a new unit, a new subject, not just the writing behind that, but now creating something like that. Who produces 7 new books every single month? It's unheard of, unheard of. I can tell you from working with publishing companies, it takes up to a year for a project to go into idea mode, and then to be written, and then to go through editing and proofing, and then to go through the design process, and then to go to the printers and come back from printing, and now it's ready for launch. Like a year, sometimes more. These are huge things. And I'm talking about, but what if I could do this every month? Every month. I had this picture and I started writing down ideas and brainstorming. I had ideas for themes. I was thinking of how I would organize it and separate it. And it was a crazy, wild, absolutely insane idea. And yet I felt like God said, you can do this. This is possible. This is possible. So it was all from him. Every part of Gather Round Homeschool has stemmed from literally prayer. Every part of it has come from praying and hearing God's voice on what he wants for our family and on life and life abundantly. Every part of Gather Round Homeschool is completely and 100% geared around life and life abundantly. And not just in your homeschool, but in your family, because it's going to free you up to have the time to now connect as a family. It's going to give you connection points as a family. Every part of it is the whole vision behind it is life and life abundantly, to stop settling, to stop panicking, sweating, bouncing from one kid to the next. So that was the beginning. Those are the baby stages of Gather Round Homeschool. So I did what any normal wife would do, and I came home and I began reaching out and looking for designers for a project like this. Hey, I'm looking for a designer. You would need to design about, what is it, 120 pages, guys, times 6. So we're looking at 6, 7, about 800, 9, about 1,000 pages. 1,000 pages, you have 1 month to do it. And you know, this is what I'm looking at. It's insane. I mean, I can tell you right now, every single person that ever reached out with interest, as soon as I gave the details of the project, was like, no, because I have a life. I have children. I have things to do outside of working for you, and that's not going to work for me in that timeline. It's an insane project, insane. And I found one designer, our first designer that joined the team, and she was crazy enough to jump on it with me, and she's like, I'm in. So I said, great, I'm going to pay you this amount of money, which was a very high amount of money for us. And of course, I'm not making anything. I'm not doing anything. I'm pulling back on reviews so I can focus on this. And I did not tell my husband. No, because he would have heard that amount of money and been like, no, that's a little bit too big. That's insane. Now, I am not condoning not telling your husband. I'm laughing about it now because we can laugh about it now, can we, Jonathan? Too soon? Yeah. He's not here right now to chime in on that. But I'm not condoning that. I knew it was wrong. I totally knew it was wrong. And yet I felt like if I could just prove it to him first. He's a numbers guy. He needs to see the proof in the pudding. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna hold off. I'm just gonna hold off. I mean, I haven't like technically paid. I've just said I'm gonna pay. So I mean, it's not like I have. You know what I mean? I was like spiraling into the technicalities. So I'm confessing this, you guys. I'm not celebrating it. Okay. So I went on for about a month. We came up with some preliminary ideas, a sample, and I just like put it up, made a website, and was like, now pre-ordering something we haven't even made. Ha! And it took off. Family after family after family started joining us and even saying, I want to do the whole year of this based on this one sample that we had. This one idea that God had given me that I had no idea if anyone was even going to be interested in. And now I went to my husband and I was like, hey babe, by the way, I spent this amount of money, but no big deal because we've already paid that off in pre-orders. It unfortunately was a big deal and we had a wonderful discussion about it. But he and I are now, I am happy to say, on the same page. I no longer hold things back from my husband. And we talk about these things. But this is the testimony. This is the beginning of Gather Round Homeschool. And I'm telling you this because I want you to understand where I was at in my life. I want you to understand how frazzled I was feeling with trying to balance everything. And I want to get across the point, before I even go in and talk about Gather Round Homeschool, I want to get across the point that this program is not just a program. This is not just another curriculum book to put on your shelf. This is an entire new lifestyle of education. Basically, this is going to one day be a new homeschool method. We talk about unit study, we talk about Charlotte Mason, where there's Montessori, there's all these things. This is in its own category. This is a new thing. It brings in elements of all of those, but it's new. And every month it's coming out with something brand new. So you always have that excitement. You never get to get in a lull with it or get bored with it because it's always new and yet always connecting. So I want you to see this progression and the testimony of this. And before I even begin to share the look inside and talk about it and the philosophy and how it works, to catch the glimpse of this vision and to understand that this is not me. This is not me. This is God's. Gather Round Homeschool is God's. The idea was His, the follow-through is His, the people He has brought into our team. We now have 10 different people on our team, from proofers, writers, and designers working on this. We're working on 2 to 3 different units at a single given month. We have crazy deadlines we're working with. We've had literally hundreds of families that have joined us on this, and it has just been exploding. But I know that this is not me. This is God, and I want to make sure that that foundation is laid before I even begin to show you inside the curriculum. So I'm actually going to do these videos in a series because I have a tendency to ramble, and I know that this could be long and arduous process. I don't even know if I used that word right, so. But I want to do them in a series. The next series, I'm going to talk about the philosophy, how it works. The third video in the series, I'm actually going to show you inside the book. So if you're short on time, no problem. Watch part 1, part 2, part 3 of the story of Gather Round Homeschool, and stay tuned for the next video in the series. We'll talk to you guys later. If you like this video, like my channel, I'd love for you to subscribe, share my videos, and comment below what you think so that we can have a conversation. Talk to you later.